Good evening, everybody. We left off on page 289. Mr. O'Malley, what's the last thing you remember? Connor sighed and felt a slight pain in his chest at the movement. He could only imagine what excruciating pain he'd be in if not for the morphine. He closed his eyes and tried to think of the last thing he remembered. We were in a car, he said painfully slowly, his voice hoarse and weak. It was so cold. He looked at Kerry. You were crying. We were in a car accident. Are Aiden and Patrick okay? Kerry's expression betrayed her worry. She looked at Dr. Morton, still remaining quiet. No, you weren't in a car accident. Your children are fine, to my knowledge. Kerry nodded in agreement, attempting to reassure him with a smile. Try to describe some of your surroundings from your last memory. Do you remember anything else? Morton asked. I was in this place with a cement floor. Then I was at the amusement park. He stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded. No, I wasn't at the amusement park. He sounded tired, Kerry thought. That was only natural, she supposed, but it still scared her. And he didn't have any coherent memories of what had happened. It was cold. Then we were in the car, he continued. I don't know what came first. I don't know. Okay, Dr. Morton accepted. He scribbled a few things down on an electronic pad. His notes were instantly downloaded into Connor's file. Don't worry about it. You're doing fine. He saw that Connor and Kerry both looked worried. Seriously, don't worry. Mr. O'Malley? You can call me Connor, he said sleepily, and closed his eyes. Connor, I'm going to give you 5 things to remember, okay? Sure. A little later, I'm going to ask you what they were. I'll repeat them for you once. As soon as Connor nodded, Dr. Morton said slowly, a fire truck, a house, a tree, a computer, and a dog. A fire truck, a house, a tree, a computer, and a dog. Okay, Connor said. Mr. O'Malley, can you spell check backwards for me? Connor opened his eyes, looking slightly alarmed when he couldn't immediately answer the question. Finally, he said, E, U, Q, E, H, C. Dr. Morton raised an eyebrow. It's the UK spelling backward, Kerry told him. Comprehension washed over him with Dr. Morton's face. Sorry, he said with an embarrassed smile. Maybe I should have spelled it in American English. You did just fine. Don't worry, Connor, Dr. Morton said reassuringly. Can you follow my finger with your eyes, please? Connor did so, and Dr. Morton wrote a few more things down. Kerry all but craned her neck to see what he had written. Now I'm going to shine a light into your eyes. Just stare at my shoulder. Dr. Morton held Connor's eyelid open as he checked the dilation of each pupil and wrote down his results. He then looked at Connor's encased leg and said, Can you wiggle your toes for me? Connor obeyed and felt some resistance. He imagined that the morphine was taking care of the pain. Okay, good, Dr. Morton said, writing down the results on the pad. Can you squeeze my hand? Now with your other hand. Good. Press your foot up, down. Excellent. Kerry took her husband's hand back. All right, now, what were those 5 things I asked you to remember? Connor thought for a moment. A fire truck, he said, and paused. A dog? Uh, a tree? And he looked at Kerry, who wanted for all the world to give him a hint. It killed her to see him struggle. I don't know. I'm sorry, he said eventually. Good, you did fine, Dr. Morton concluded, pulling the covers back up and writing down his last result. He looked up at Kerry and Connor. Given the amount of head trauma Connor took, he said, looking between the two of them, his responses were as predicted. Does that mean he'll be okay? She asked. Most likely, he'll make a complete recovery. He addressed Connor. I want to keep you here in the ICU for at least a day to keep an eye on you. Then you can move into a regular room, and if all goes well, you should be able to be transferred to a hospital closer to where you live in a few days. Maybe a little more. You can stay here for about a week, and then you'll be able to leave. Kerry frowned. Why so long? She asked. Hospital stays were rarely longer than a few days. Connor suffered a traumatic brain injury, and he'll need special monitoring to assure it heals properly. Connor's eyes were drooping, and Kerry patted his hand and looked to Morton. Thank you, Doctor. Morton nodded and said, We'll let him rest a bit, and then we'll start some physical therapy. He placed the electronic pad in the holder and on the bed, and then walked toward the door. Kerry followed him out. Dr. Morton, she said once the door was closed behind her, when do you think he'll remember what happened? Will he ever remember what happened? He'll probably fully recover his memory of the incident in the next few days. It could be a bit longer, but it probably won't be. She nodded. What kind of warning signs should I look for to alert you that there's something wrong? He smiled kindly at her. Connor's brain is monitored, Lieutenant. You don't have to worry about telling us what's going on. We're keeping a close eye on him. Though if he becomes emotionally agitated once his memories come back, that's something you could let us know. There are medications we can give him to calm him down. She nodded. He scored well on the coma recovery scale. He's tired and on morphine, and we can't really ask for much more. He remembered your children's names right away. He remembered you. Given his injuries, he's in the best shape he could possibly be in. She nodded, but didn't seem satisfied. How about physically? She asked. I'm sorry, I wasn't totally listening the first time you explained it to me. That's understandable, Dr. Morton said with a small smile. Connor's skull was cracked in a few places, but as far as we can tell, there's no permanent brain damage. The bullet to his leg shattered his femur, but missed the femoral artery somehow. He was very lucky. He lost a significant amount of blood, and the nerves and muscles in his leg were badly damaged. He'll need some physical therapy. We've injected the bone with nanites to set it, and to quicken the pace of the bone restructuring process. My estimate is that Connor will be able to walk in 6 to 8 months by himself, but until then he'll need some type of aid. Right away, probably a hover chair, after that a walker, and you get the picture. Kerry nodded. What about his lung? When will breathing be easier for him? He'll probably be in a considerable amount of pain in that area for a few weeks to come, so he'll need pain meds, and he'll need to start breathing exercises with a physical therapist, but he should be breathing effortlessly in about a week. All in all, he's looking at a pretty long and intense road to recovery, but given his progress so far, we're optimistic. He'll need a lot of support, though. She looked relieved. My family's in town. They'll be able to keep a close eye on him once he comes home. It hurt her to know that she wouldn't be able to spend this time with him. She would be hunting Smith, and there was no way around that. She had to catch that woman. It was her duty to the country and to Connor. Dr. Morton smiled. That's perfect. If you need us to, we can appoint a nurse to look after him. For now, though, let's focus on getting him out of ICU. Should I tell him what happened? That's up to you, he said. He shows all signs of being able to remember on his own, eventually. If you'd like to tell him once he's able to stay awake a little longer, then go right ahead. I'll wait till we're in a private room. Okay, Dr. Morton said with a nod. Thank you again, Kerry said, trying to keep in high spirits. She walked back to the maximum care room, telling herself repeatedly, he's going to be okay. You can relax. He'll be okay. Where are Aiden and Patrick? Connor's groggy, barely detectable question caught Kerry by surprise. She sat on the side of his bed and took his hand. He didn't open his eyes. "They're with Neil," Kerry told him, still smiling. "Safe." He blinked and looked around. "Neil's here? When did he get in?" "Yesterday evening. Mum and Dad are coming today." Connor smiled slightly and closed his eyes again. "I wasn't aware I was so popular." Kerry smiled back and chuckled slightly. "I am worried about the kids, though," he said, completely serious. He opened his eyes slightly and looked at her. Kerry's smile vanished. "Why?" "Neil's cooking," he said, a mischievous grin appearing on the corners of his lips. Kerry laughed, delighted to see even a small version of his boyish smile. "Now that wasn't very nice." He didn't get a chance to reply, though, because Kerry's cell phone rang. She unclipped it from her belt and looked at the CID. She was unhappy to see Tillman's face and name appear on the preview screen. She sighed and said, "I have to take this." Leaving the room, she popped the holographic screen up and said to him, "You're in public on speaker, Tillman. What can I do for you?" "There's been an incident," he said, and Kerry's stomach dropped. "You need to go somewhere private." For once, Kerry didn't argue. We'll read more tomorrow.